I still can't go live.
Yeah, no, you can't. I couldn't go live for like, I think it was like 2 weeks.
They told me 30 days.
30 days?
Oh, listen.
Why you had to
jump you, Flip?
I just want to talk to Yandy.
See, you
My
do
nephew
this
here.
again. Come on, Flip.
I want to touch
Flip. Don't claim with the hands and you yelling. Come on.
Why you had him jump me?
I didn't have nobody jump you.
So why didn't touch me for?
You touched me. You smacked my hand.
Alright, so what, man? I give you a hug, man.
Come on, Flip.
No,
Come on. See,
no,
stop.
Flip.
Flip.
Give me a hug. Give me a hug. You said, jump me again. Jump me again.
This is shocking. Everything took a sharp turn for the worst, culminating with Yandy Smith-Harris and Mendeecees Harris in handcuffs, just when we thought they were enjoying a tranquil holiday in Mexico. Yes, you heard that right. Fans were left in complete shock as what was supposed to be a peaceful vacation with their fellow cast members erupted into absolute chaos. Witnesses say that while tensions had been brewing for days, no one expected things to explode like this. Mendeecees had been seen earlier casually chatting and laughing with the group before all hell broke loose. A furious argument escalated into a full-fledged brawl. Fists were flying before anyone could intervene. The most shocking moment came when Mendeecees was swiftly taken away in handcuffs by local authorities right in front of Yandy. Now, the biggest questions remain. What triggered this violent altercation? Who else was involved? And most importantly, what happens next? Stay tuned because we have all the inside details, first-hand accounts, and jaw-dropping revelations about this arrest that has Mexico buzzing. At first, everything seemed perfect. Beaches, luxury resorts, and breathtaking ocean views. Fans had been eagerly watching as Yandy and Mendeecees appeared to be enjoying life away from controversy. But no one saw this coming. What was meant to be a much-needed retreat turned into a complete disaster. Instead of unwinding, Mendeecees and several other cast members got caught up in a whirlwind of drama that ended in handcuffs. The trip was supposed to be a mix of leisure and work, with time for both relaxation and filming. But Mendeecees' night took an unexpected and devastating turn. At first, everything seemed fine, with music playing and drinks flowing. The resort's private bar had a laid-back vibe, like they had finally found some peace. But behind the scenes, tensions were simmering. Witnesses say that earlier that afternoon, Mendeecees had been caught in a heated argument. The first signs of trouble appeared when Yandy, looking stunning in a white summer dress, was enjoying cocktails by the pool with the ladies. Then it happened. A certain cast member, whose name is being withheld for now, got into an intense argument with Mendeecees. At first, it wasn't explosive, but those who overheard it say it was tense. The voices were low but sharp, the body language unmistakably hostile. According to insiders, it all started with a comment that struck a nerve with Mendeecees. Yandy even tried to defuse the situation, gently placing her hand on Mendeecees' arm, but that wasn't enough. One thing is clear, Mendeecees' past legal troubles are a sensitive topic, and let's just say it didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. It was personal, it was about him and his family. Even though there was no physical altercation at first, it was obvious that the issue wasn't over. Mendeecees was later spotted pacing around the resort, shaking his head and talking to himself, trying to calm down. By dinner time, tensions were at a boiling point. The cast gathered at an elegant beachside restaurant, thinking they could leave the drama behind. One source says the cast arrived in good spirits, at least on the surface. But then everything exploded. The same cast member who had argued with Mendeecees earlier once again brought up his past. At first, it was just a brief exchange of words. But fueled by alcohol and a relaxed atmosphere, the cast member made another slick remark. At the time, others were laughing, drinking, and chatting, while Yandy and Mendeecees sat at one end of the long table. For a brief moment, it seemed like the evening would go on without incident. Then everything changed. A hustler will always be a hustler. There was silence at the table. Mendeecees paused in the middle of his bite, tightened his jaw, and carefully put down his fork. "What did you just say?" Unfazed, the cast member leaned back in his chair and grinned. "I'm merely stating that some people never truly change. They simply get better at hiding it." Yandy's gaze shifted between the two men, and she could tell right away where this was going. With a gentle touch on Mendeecees' forearm, she added, "Come on, let's not do this right now." However, it was too late. With a voice that was dangerously low, like the quiet before a storm, Mendeecees pushed his chair back and got to his feet. The whole table was holding their breath at this point. "You have one more chance to check how you speak to me." Security guards, sensing that things were about to get worse, began to move closer. "Prove yourself to everyone here." That was it, Mendeecees snapped. Before anyone could respond, he turned the table over, knocking glasses and plates on the ground. The hardwood deck clattered with cutlery as cast members staggered back and knocked over seats to get away from the mayhem. Gasps sprang through the air just as Mendeecees' fist struck his opponent's face. The cast member stumbled against another table but bounced back quickly, landing a punch of his own that caught Mendeecees in the jaw. Yandy cried, "Stop," but it was already too late. The two men were hitting fiercely at one another, completely entrenched in a vicious battle. At nearby tables, customers fled or pulled out their phones to record the chaos. Some cast members hid behind the bar. Security hurried in, but Mendeecees became so furious that he pushed a guard away and threw the cast member to the ground. Bottles flew off an adjacent bar, shattering glass. It took several security officers to eventually separate them. Mendeecees delivered a final blow to the ribs before being hauled away, his chest heaving with rage. Anger and restraint were mixed together on his expression, but the harm was already done. He scowled at his opponent, who was now cleaning blood off his split lip, while the whole restaurant was in disarray. Some cast members were hurriedly trying to call Yandy, who was crying and yelling for Mendeecees to stop before things got worse. Staff members were muttering furiously, and guests continued to video the chaos. But worse was to come. The night was broken by sirens. Just as everyone believed it was over, the restaurant was suddenly filled with flashing red and blue lights. The police were on their way. The restaurant was filled with spooky shadows as their sirens blasted through the hot Mexican air. The screams of horrified onlookers blended with the sound of glass cracking, adding to the confusion. What had started out as a quiet vacation meal had descended into complete chaos. Yandy stood motionless for a moment. This was meant to be a respite from the tension of home. Now, instead, they were in the middle of a police standoff. Panic swept over her like a wave as the flashing lights reflected off the restaurant windows. Mendeecees stood close by, his chest still heaving from the fight, slouched against an overturned chair. The cast member he had battled was spitting slurs and wiping blood from the corner of his lips. Mendeecees realized he had to get out. This wasn't some trivial reality TV drama. This was real. And in Mexico, things were different. The police were moving quickly, and it was obvious that Mendeecees was in grave danger. Yandy, one of the cast members, hurriedly whispered, her eyes darting toward the officers already pushing through the entrance. However, Yandy stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. Staff workers hurried to explain, waving their arms toward the broken glass, the upturned tables, and the two guys at the center of the pandemonium. As the first police entered, shouting quickly in Spanish, Yandy snapped out of it, her hands shaking as she held his arm. "We can't stay here," she whispered. "The police, Mendeecees. We must leave." "Make an arrest?" No, you don't understand." Her voice broke as she begged. He was only protecting himself. He was not at blame for this. A translator swiftly intervened and relayed the officer's statements, but the police weren't paying attention because they had witnessed enough. It appeared for a moment that Mendeecees would fight back, his body tense, his jaw locked, his mind screaming not to let this happen. But then he saw Yandy's face. The sheer terror in her eyes stopped him cold. He was no longer just angry, he was afraid. Afraid of what this meant for his family, his future. Mendeecees was being arrested for assault, and he had two options. He could leave voluntarily, or he would be taken against his will. Slowly, he raised his hands. Yandy broke down. No. This is not possible. She choked out, her voice trembling. She turned to M, desperation all over her face, but there was nothing either of them could do now. The officers wasted no time. They grabbed him roughly, twisting his arms behind his back. The cold metal of the handcuffs snapped onto his wrists. Just like that, Mendeecees was no longer a man on vacation. He was an American being arrested in a foreign country. "You can't take him." This wasn't started by him. He was merely defending himself. The other cast members stood motionless, unsure of what to do, while Yandy's screams reverberated throughout the restaurant. Some naturally took out their phones and recorded every second, but the officers ignored them, dragging Mendeecees toward the exit. The restaurant patrons whispered to one another, some still in disbelief at how quickly things had gotten out of hand. Meanwhile, the cast member who had fought Mendeecees sat back with a smug grin. But Yandy wasn't about to let this happen without a fight. She ran after them as they pushed Mendeecees outside, frantically switching between broken Spanish and English, begging anyone to listen. "Please, he doesn't commit crimes. You're not getting it. Release him." When the officers arrived at the police van, They remained stony-faced and pushed Mendeecees inside, without hesitation. He turned back, his eyes locking onto Yandy's, a mixture of frustration and helplessness written all over his face. The scene outside was equally chaotic, with flashing police lights lighting up the street and drawing a crowd of onlookers, some filming, others simply watching in stunned silence. He mumbled the words, "I'm sorry," but Yandy's tears and the roar of sirens drowned him out. "We'll fix this. Hold on." As the police then pulled away, Yandy stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, watching as the love of her life vanished into the night. She had seen Mendeecees in handcuffs before and experienced the highs and lows of his legal battles, but this felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "This can't be happening," she said, her voice raw with emotion. Yandy had no idea what was going to happen next, or how she was going to fix this. But Yandy wasn't finished. She wiped away her tears, took a deep breath, and picked up her phone, because there was only one thing left to do: call the lawyer. Her hands trembled as she dialed the number, her voice barely above a whisper. "We're going to fix this, Mendeecees. I'm not leaving Mexico without you." The rest of the cast was still in shock from the chaos inside the restaurant. The staff had already begun cleaning up the wreckage, broken glass and overturned chairs, while the last few customers whispered to one another, still in shock over what they had just witnessed. The torment continued even after he was freed on bond. After everything they had endured, Yandy was not going to let Mendeecees languish in a Mexican prison. The officers hadn't wasted any time before clamping the icy metal handcuffs over his wrists. They threw him about violently and pulled his arms behind his back. Mendeecees was suddenly not only a vacationing man, he was an American citizen held in a foreign nation. Desperate to get to Mendeecees, Yandy screamed, "You can't take him. He didn't start anything. He was just protecting himself." As she struggled to get past the officers, the rest of the actors stood motionless, some too stunned to move, others struggling to film and take out their phones. However, the officers showed little concern. Despite Yandy's pleas, they pushed past them and dragged Mendeecees toward the exit. Murmurs about how quickly things had escalated echoed across the astonished crowd. Mendeecees turned just before they slammed the doors, his eyes meeting Yandy's, anger and helplessness mixed together. He mouthed the words, "I'm sorry," but Yandy's sobbing and the siren's shrieks drowned out anything he had to say. "We'll work this out. Simply release him." She cried, but it didn't help. As the police then pulled away, Yandy stood frozen on the sidewalk, her world falling apart before her eyes. Back at the hotel suite, Mendeecees sat on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through the never-ending flood of messages. Friends, family, and cast members were among them, some offering support, others merely looking for details. Mendeecees rubbed his temples, his frustration visible. "I understand, but what do you want me to do? We can't just react emotionally. We have to stay quiet and let them spin whatever story they want." Yandy's phone buzzed, a call from the show's producer. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "We need to be careful with how we handle this," she said, her arms crossed tightly as she stood near the window, watching the city lights. The producer didn't waste any time. "We need to get ahead of this. The network is freaking out, and this is turning into a bigger scandal than we imagined." Yandy's eyes narrowed. The producer added, "You expected something to happen, didn't you?" There was a brief silence before the producer laughed nervously. "Let's just say, drama makes for great TV." But this was more than just TV. This was their life. The producers had stoked the feud between M and the other cast members for ratings, but now that it had gotten out of hand, they were rushing to clean up the mess. "We want you and M to do a private interview," the producer went on. "Give your side of the story. Make it clear that this wasn't just some reckless act of violence." Yandy's jaw tightened. She knew exactly what was happening. She glanced at M, who was observing her closely. "We'll think about it," she muttered before hanging up. "So, now they want to fix their mess?" Yandy sneered. Nevertheless, the couple consented to the interview. The following day, the network installed cameras in their suite and brought in a renowned journalist to ask the difficult questions. As the interview started, footage of the fight played on the screen behind them. They knew they couldn't remain silent. The court of public opinion had already begun to shape the narrative, and if they didn't take control, someone else would. Surveillance footage showed the other man pushing M repeatedly before he finally lost it. M took a deep breath and said, "Honestly, I tried to walk away. I knew things were getting heated. I didn't come to Mexico for drama. I came to enjoy myself with my wife, but this guy kept pushing me, testing me. And yeah, I lost my cool. The journalist turned to him and asked, "Some people are saying you were set up, that this was staged for ratings. What do you think?" Look, I won't sit here and pretend reality TV doesn't thrive on drama. But this wasn't a setup. This was real life. When emotions are high and people are under stress, things can escalate fast. Yandy interrupted before he could say anything more. "Do you regret what happened?" The journalist leaned in. "I hate that my family is going through this. I hate that someone else is controlling the narrative. But do I regret standing up for myself?" M paused. "No." Fans were split within hours of the interview going viral, some applauding M for defending himself, others remaining doubtful. But one thing was certain. This story had just reached a new level. M exhaled, looking down for a moment before staring directly into the camera. "I didn't think he would actually swing on me like that. And now I'm the bad guy? Come on, dude. You don't even know the whole situation. I was only kidding around." He sat in his car, staring straight into the camera, then went a step further, hinting that the altercation was about more than just heated words, something deeper, something personal. Let's just say some people don't like it when you know their trade secrets. It wasn't long before the blogs ran with it, twisting the narrative in every direction. Yandy was so angry that she slammed her phone down when she saw the new accusations. But what if people believe him? What if the network runs with it and turns this into something even bigger? Yandy yelled and shook his head. Let him talk. He's just trying to stay relevant. He crossed his arms, remaining composed. Then we keep moving forward, business as usual. They left Mexico a few days later, hoping to move on from the drama. But as soon as they landed in the United States, paparazzi were waiting. Cameras flashing, questions flying. Did you pay to get out of jail? Is the show going to fire you? Once a rumor started, it was almost impossible to stop. Yandy, exhausted from the chaos, sat on the couch still processing everything. She envied M's composure, but she understood how this game worked. Yandy turned to face him. We need to decide. Do we let this die down, or do we fight back? M paused for a moment, then smirked. Why not both? Yandy raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? This isn't over. M ignored the commotion, pushing through the media storm with Yandy by his side. We let them talk, let them speculate, and when the time is right, we drop our own bombshell, something bigger than all of this. After closely observing him, Yandy realized he wasn't only considering damage control, but also strategy. At that moment, she realized that this wasn't just a scandal, it was an opportunity. In the reality TV industry, drama isn't just a problem, it's currency. This drama is far from over. But what did that cast member really mean? Will M and Yandy take control of the story? Or will the rumors get worse? Do you think M was set up? Or did he let his emotions get the better of him? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications so you don't miss the next explosive update. This story? It's only the beginning. Keep an eye out.